Welcome to Sports Geek Q&A. Here's your host, Sean Callanan.
Yes, I'm Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. Remember, you can send in your question by a multitude of ways. You can do it via sportsgeekhq.com/questions. You can tweet them in at Sean Callanan, at Sports Geek. You can hit me up on Facebook, Sean Callanan Speaks, or Sports Geek. Or you can even hit me up on Instagram, Sean Callanan. Or you can use the old-fashioned method, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com to get me via email. Before we get into today's questions, don't forget you can support all of our podcasting, newsletter, and sports business content efforts on Patreon. Simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. First question came in from my brother, who has got 2 kids at home. He asks, what's a good resource to engage my kids during this lockdown, but really any time? So mine actually comes from a friend of mine, a former podcast guest, Kevin Cote, who was the Golden State Warriors and is now at Facebook. He put me onto a tool called Home Court AI. And it's a really cool tool where you can set up your phone and it takes your kids through basketball drills and all those kind of things to improve their skills. So it's a really good example of, I guess, the advances in sports tech and how it can engage kids, but it's also a coaching tool and those kind of things. So I would check out homecourt.ai. The other one that I think you should check out is the 3D. The animals in 3D with the Google camera. So pretty much, search a tiger or a lion in Google on your phone, and then it will say, "Hey, look at this object in 3D," and it'll open up and be an augmented reality application. So you can effectively have a tiger in your living room or in your backyard, and effectively enact your own Tiger King episodes if you really want. But it's a really good way to engage your kids in this time of when we're all locked down and staying safe and those kind of things. Question 2 comes from our Sports Biz Zoom calls. If you haven't joined them, please do so. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Zoom calls. This question I actually threw to Jake around the discussion around stadiums, and so wanted to, give it a bit of an answer myself and sort of recap what Jake said on the call. And the question was, what will stadium design look like PC post-COVID-19? And so, there already was this debate of smaller stadiums, more intimate stadiums, more open spaces. And, that's one of the things that Jake sort of talked about. Will we try, I think he was talking about, will we follow the lead of the airlines that have constantly packed more people in and made it tighter quarters? It'll be interesting to see what airlines do post the pandemic. So will we see more open spaces designed in stadiums? Will we see more suites with more room? Will we see more open bars so you can be watching it rather than be sitting side by side? So it will be interesting to see whether the pandemic and the current feeling of fans will shape what stadiums will be in the future. So we're not talking stadiums that are going to be built in the next 6 months and those kind of things, but will it really affect our behaviour overall? Will social distancing be the norm potentially in the future? So I think it is something that will affect all parts of the sports industry. Question 3 came by Andrew via the website. Can you share a story you might not have shared on the podcast? Well, I think I have shared a lot of stories on the podcast, over 270 odd episodes. I'm not too sure if I have shared this one. I want to tell you the story of the Gilby fan club. And I guess this is probably my earliest fan engagement story. This is back before fan engagement was a thing, before it was a term. I'm still not convinced it is a term. But I was a teenager growing up in country town 2 hours from Melbourne, Ballarat, in country Victoria. And my job as a teenager was to be a basketball referee. So I was a basketball referee at the Ballarat Stadium, playing for the Ballarat BYC Wildcats. And so me, my brother, and a couple of mates, we would referee basketball games from pretty much 8:30 on a Saturday morning with under 10s all the way through to 4:30 games on the Saturday afternoon. And it was great. Refereeing games all all day. You got some money in the pocket, hang around with your mates and play basketball and just be around a sport that you loved. And at the end of and on a Saturday night in what was the Seabull then, the Ballarat Miners, the local basketball team, would play, and they would play against rivals like the Bendigo Braves and the things like that. And so we would go to the Miners game and sit at the back with Eric Cooks, who went on to play the NBL. His son now plays for the Boomers, Eric Hayes, and some names like that. And there was this one guy that came off the bench and had big hops, legs like steel springs, as you might say. And his name was Craig Gilbert. And so we decided just for fun, we would be the Gilby fan club. And so we had a friend of my dad's who was a caricature artist, and he built, he could do cartoons of people. He did a big cartoon mask of Gilby. And so there was about 8 of us, probably swelled to about 12 or 15 in the end. And every time Gilby got the ball, we just went berserk and just lifted the crowd and jumped up and down and just became a lot of fun. So there'd be Gilby, 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 oi, oi, oi. Every time he scored, he'd get a dunk, and it was just a lot of fun. That's how I was passing, Saturday nights in Ballarat as a 16, 17-year-old. And then I came down to Melbourne to go to university at Swinburne as a Bachelor of Info Tech. And fortuitously, Gilby also graduated to the NBL, playing for the Hobart Devils. And so this was a time many, many years ago when Melbourne had 4 teams in the NBL. Melbourne as a town, it had the South Melbourne Saints, North Melbourne Giants, Southeast Melbourne Spectres, and the Melbourne Tigers. So I said to my mates at the uni at the time, look, Gilby's this guy from Ballarat. We used to follow him every time, every game. And we say when there's 4 games in Melbourne when he's going to play, we're going to reform the Gilby fan club and just go to an NBL game and just go bananas when this 10th, 11th man gets off the bench. And so, we went to a couple of games. I think there was one game that actually clashed with our university ball, and me and my mate Marcus, or Skipper as he's known, we actually turned up to the game at the Glass House in full tuxedos because that's where we were heading to after the game. So it was very funny standing at the top of the stairs, and people would come past us and they would show us their ticket stubs thinking we were some kind of ushers. So again, just for the fun of it, just that yes and nature of let's have fun. We directed so many fans to the wrong seats that night. It was a lot of fun. So I think we went to a couple of games. Then the last game of the NBL season, I actually organised a bus from Ballarat. So I organised as a 17-year-old. I was 18 then. I organised a bus of 60 people to come down to the Melbourne Glass House to see the Hobart Tassie Devils versus the Southeast Melbourne Spectres. And at that time, if you follow the NBL, Bruce Bolden was was the star of the Southeast Melbourne Spectres. And he would go to the line and he had a free throw routine of 2 really large bounces, really strong bounces of the basketball before shooting a free throw. And one of our bits, or one of our routines when watching a game was to mimic the opposition free throw shooter and do the bounce. And because Bruce had this really pronounced loud bounce, it really worked well because we got 50 people in a dead silent glass house to go bounce. And it was almost like that comic book or, the double take, like Bruce looking at the ball, thinking something was wrong with the ball. So it was really great to support Gilby. He played 1 year in the NBL. He had a couple of matches where he got some points, but it was his one run in the NBL. I was lucky enough to caught up with Gilby after the game. I've still got his Hobart Cascade Tassie Devils blazer in my cupboard. So there's I guess one of his closest thing is to a sports geek origin story. I'm still president of the Gilby fan club. Next time you see me, I've still got my Gilby fan club membership in my wallet. But that's how I got my start in understanding fans and just loving sport. And so and at this time especially, I'm really looking forward for when sport comes back. So Thanks again for your questions. Sorry there has been a little bit of a break. I'm going to get back on a regular schedule of podcasting. Remember, you can send in your questions anytime via all of my social media channels, or send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. I probably will be inspired by and lifting some of the questions from the Sports Geek, Sports Biz Zoom calls. You can go to them, go to sportsgeekhq.com/Zoom calls. We'd really love to have you come on those sessions. Until then, I'd love your support on Patreon. If you get some value out of the work that we do in the podcasting and newsletter and now Zoom call space, you can sign up at Patreon, sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. I'd really appreciate your monthly support. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
You can reach Sean Callanan via email at sean@sportsgeekhq.com. Find out more about Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process at digitaltodollars.com. Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.